I once claimed to someone, partly as a joke, but partly serious as well, I think, or speculating, that I like Revolver more than I like the Beatles themselves. I don't know if I necessarily feel that way. There is something to be said for the quantity of an entire group's body of work versus one album, although I love this album notably more than the... This is definitely my favourite of the studio discography. That's a certainty in my mind. It's almost the most popular choice nowadays, except for maybe Abbey Road. I think Sgt. Pepper's became too much of a cliche over the years, and now this one is the one which has been highlighted as not only the best Beatles album, but perhaps the greatest of all music albums ever, even better than Sgt. Pepper's, some might claim. I mean, I would claim, but I'm not really interested in greatest album of all time claims. Well, I'm more comfortable with that being applied to Revolver than Sgt. Pepper. I'll say that much, to be honest. Though I would claim Sgt. Pepper's is my second favourite. This will just be a brief video where I go through the track list and point out why each song makes me love the album more. So, here we go. Taxman is an excellent start. That kind of the sitar-esque raga rock thing going on with George Harrison. This is one of the better tunes he composed for the group. I tend to think of a lot of people, there's that kind of contrarian claim, oh, George was secretly the best Beatle. I don't buy it. He's in the same band as John and Paul. Like, that's just ridiculous. Although, yeah, he was a very talented guy. There's no doubt about that. A lot more talented than Ringo. Eleanor Rigby, I don't think I would like... You know, there's all those claims people make about Paul McCartney, greatest recording artist of the 20th century, greatest songwriter of all time, blah, blah, blah. The fact that he wrote Eleanor Rigby in his earlier 20s is partly why people feel that way. I think that has so much to do with it, particularly the age he was at, although there is a superior number potentially on this album, one which is more, it's less of a story he's composing about someone he doesn't know and doesn't exist. Maybe it's based on someone he knows, I'm not sure. And then we're going to another one which is just a beautiful articulation of his own experiences. We'll get to that. It's on side B. If you're a Beatles fan, you already know what I'm talking about. Then track 3, I'm Only Sleeping. Go and read, if you're so inclined, Mark Fisher's incomplete, unfortunately, acid communism manifesto of sorts. The writing he does, dissecting the lyrics, analysing the lyrics of this song, John Lennon's I'm Only Sleeping, is some of the most interesting music criticism I've ever read. I tend to think of Mark Fisher's writing on Joy Division as the most captivating music criticism I've ever read. I posted that somewhere on the internet, Rate Your Music, and I think some people are kind of, jeering at it, but they can go... As far as I'm concerned, if you have a comment disagreeing with something I said or having issue with something I said, but you post it at a place where I'm not going to, be able to see it, it's not in a reply to what I said, then that's essentially an admission on your part that I'm right and you're wrong. I'm sorry. Like, that's just how it's going to be from now on. And anyway, I love you too. More of that genius Harrison kind of raga rock. There was never enough raga rock in the 60s. Like, I guess just maybe that's so bad we can look at it in hindsight as slightly cultural appropriation, but they meant well by it. Like, obviously, I mean, they mean more well than most of the people who are coming after them in retrospect for it. Like, let's tear this down! It's like, good intentions, guys. Here, There, and Everywhere. Good song, a bit sappy. No, it is good. It's less what I like to listen to. I just think it's a bit rote and kind of like, you can imagine, like, the gang thinking and Paul and thinking, oh, this is such a good song as they're writing it. I'm just like, yeah. Yellow Submarine is genius. We all live in a fascist regime. A fascist regime. A fascist regime. I mean, it's both this goofy, lovely hippie number and also this timeless Edwardian era nursery rhyme. Well, I don't know if they had... Yeah, because that's when they started to introduce submarines, right? Jules Verne. So it's of that time, some decades after 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea was published, I believe, the Edwardian era, whatever. She Said. This song is amazing. I love the backstory of this song. So John Lennon was tripping at some party and Peter Fonda happened to be there. And Peter Fonda kept talking about, like, death and he was giggling and was acting like a loon, apparently. And John Lennon started to get, enough, get him out of here. And if I were in the circumstances, I would have probably felt, oh, thank God someone said something. Yeah, naturally it'd be John. Jeez. Peter Fonda was bumming me out there. Thank God John said something. Brilliant song. Good day, sunshine. When I wake up, I'm Paul McCartney and I write songs, they all sound the same, but they're nice. We all like them. I'm not as good as McCartney, and I don't know why I feel the need to make fun of the guy. Who's responsible for And Your Bird Can Sing? I think that's Lennon's. That's one of the two weaker cuts on here. Here's the really genius McCartney cut on here is For No One. The day breaks, your mind aches, you find that all her words of kindness linger on when she no longer needs you. She wakes up, she goes out, she sings that long ago she knew someone, but now he's gone, she won't forget him. And in her eyes you see nothing, no sign of love behind the tears, cried for no one. A love that should have lasted years. Do, 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 do. I think that's about Jane Asher, who Paul McCartney was dating for a while. And it's uncanny. You can almost read For No One as from the perspective of the protagonist of a film called Deep End, which Jane Asher would later star in, directed by Josie Kolomowski. It's a very brilliant, very tragic film, and a film that has remained relevant to this day. And it's kind of a film about the male anxiety over female sexuality, and I'm pretty sure it's Jane Asher in this film. Yes, it is Jane Asher. Excellent. I was not inaccurate there. Dr. Robert. This is the other kind of weak cut on the album. Oh, and this is good. I want to tell you. Got to Get You Into My Life. It's good, but it's another one where like McCartney's thinking, oh, this is really good, isn't it? As he's writing it. It's just like, shut up, dude. Now, here's the real reason why this album is genius. It's called Tomorrow Never Knows, and I'm going to read out an excerpt from the great recording artist John Fox. He's responsible for great albums like Metamatic and The Garden, but he was also in Ultravox briefly when they released one good album at least called Systems of Romance in 1978, which inspired Gary Newman's The Pleasure Principle and led to many others to accuse John Fox of ripping off Pleasure Principle with Metamatic, although Gary Newman had cited John Fox as the precognitor of that sound anyway. John Fox shared this about Revolver for a feature for The Quietus on his favourite albums. I was in an all-night art school party in Coppell, Lancashire. One of the revered second-year students brought in a copy of Revolver, a new Beatles record just released. We sat around and played it all as one did in those days, listening to messages from another planet, soon to be our own. The local copper came in off his beat and settled down for a couple of drinks. All the beautifully crafted songs floated by in 4D. Then, right at the end, we heard Tomorrow Never Knows, and that was it. Forget the rest. We played that one all night, time after time. It wasn't like anything else we'd ever heard, but somehow seemed instantly recognizable. Sure, the words were a bit suspect, but the music, the sound, organic electricity, disintegrated transmissions, lost radio stations, Catholic/Buddhist mass from a parallel universe, what being stoned ought to be like. Weightless, timeless, revelation, moving over luminous new landscapes in serene velocity. It communicated, innovated, infiltrated, fascinated, elevated. It was a roadmap for the future. I realized much later that it contained a basic kit of almost everything I'd need to make music for the rest of my life. Drones, chants, drum loops, bass beats, random sounds, reverse tapes, verite recordings, and best of all, it sounded nothing like the blues or American rock and roll. Much as I loved all this, I felt it was way out of my experience. You could admire it but not imitate it without feeling a bit daft. So this record was also a great liberation in that sense too. Another point to make about this track is it is impossible music you could never play live. It was a creation of the recording studio, and that was also liberating and revolutionary. As an art student, I was becoming aware of that aspect of studio work, and loved it. All those possibilities of choice in the combination of inspired, momentary gestures, even accidents, with incremental, finely judged work. Much later, I read how George Martin had literally thrown in the random tapes, noises, and reversed sounds after being engaged by new ideas from Stockhausen, Schaefer, and others making the new musique concrete. Martin was a sonic genius right up there with Lee Perry and Connie Plank. In that single move, before anyone else, he used tape as a music-making medium as well as a recording medium, a shift that laid open an entire new universe in popular or any music. He changed the future of recording as well as the sound and the possibilities of popular music in that moment. Yep, turn off your mind, relax and float downstream indeed. The Beatles are overplayed and an institution at this point. That's almost or definitely fair to say, though I'll always have a soft spot in my heart. I don't know if I'll ever feel unexcited at the prospect of listening to Revolver every now and again.